Good evening, everybody. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whatever your time zone is, and wherever you're watching us from, you are welcome to Giant Stride Summit 2025, the third world advantage, rethinking Africa. I don't know if you're excited as I am. If you are ready, kindly type "I am ready" in the comment section. You are welcome. Kindly type I am ready in the comment section as we take flight in few seconds. So welcome abroad. Kindly type I am ready if you are with me. You're welcome once again to GSS 2025 Giant Stride Summit. What comes to your mind when you hear the word Africa? Well, I even feel that some people don't even want to be called Africans, especially when they find themselves in the diaspora, right? What comes to your mind when you are identified as an African? What even comes to your mind when you hear the word Africa? To some folks, is it corruption, insecurity? I think that sounds familiar. Poverty, and the likes, and what have you. Yes, we are not ignorant of the fact that Africa is plagued with so many challenges. But do you know that despite the challenges, there is beauty in Africa? Do you even believe or think that you can make impact wherever you are and wherever you find yourself as an African? Or do you still have that African mentality of nothing is possible, I can't do anything because I am an African? If that's you, then you are at the right place and at the right time, because at the end of this summit, your mind will be revolutionized and you would rethink Africa. It is indeed going to be the third world advantage, rethinking Africa. You are welcome once again to Giant Stride Summit. We have curated lots of amazing speakers that are going to be sharing from their wells of wisdom and expertise. So please get your notepads by the side, because yes, you're going to be writing. I advise you to write, yes, because there's going to be lots of things that will be said from today down to the last day being the 7th of December. So please, if you're not ready, you can get a jotter or a notebook or your e-notes by the side as we take flight. So yes, if you're with me, kindly type I am ready again in the comment section. Kindly type I am ready in the comment section. So I'll give you a couple of seconds to do that. So I'm waiting. Okay, as I said, we have lots of amazing speakers who will be sharing from their wells of expertise, their wells of knowledge, their wells of wisdom. Trust me, you don't want to miss any aspect of this summit. We have different speakers ranging from Sir Messier the Great, Dr. BMAC, Sir Eric Gugwa, and also Sir Egu Nana. We have these amazing speakers who will be dishing out wisdom and really action points that we can use to rethink Africa, to make impact, to navigate being an African regardless of the challenges, how to even stand out, how to even change our mindset, our mentality towards Africa, and even start to become a voice indeed beyond the noise, right? Beyond the noise on social media, to actually making impact, to actually being the change that we want to see in the society and in Africa. right? I'm sure you know that Africa is blessed, right? I'm so certain about that Africa is blessed. So for tonight, our first speaker that will be taking us on this journey and opening this summit is no other than Sam Mezier the Sage. I'll leave the technical unit to give us a rundown of his profile while he takes the stage. Thank you and thank you. Yes, Mezier the Sage is a growth, personal branding, and community building expert who teaches people how to launch their impact, business, and digital footprint using nothing more than the internet. He is the founder of The Cave, a thriving community dedicated to personal growth and intentional self-development. Known for simplifying complex ideas into practical steps, Mezier helps individuals build influence, create opportunities, and accelerate their growth journeys. His work focuses on clarity, discipline, community as the foundations of meaningful success. So if your hands are not busy, kindly join me as I welcome upstage with me, Sam Mezier the Sage. Thank you. You're welcome, sir. The floor is yours.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so very much for that very interesting intro. Hello, everyone. For some reason, I can't see the chat box, so I don't know what anybody's saying in the comments, but we're going to have some fun. All right. And we're really going to talk. Um, so I have to take stock of the time I have because I like to believe that by the time there's a release of utterance, it is very easy to get very sidelined and to miss the stop time. So okay, so I think I can see some comments now. That's amazing, awesome. All right, so like I was saying, I'll need to stick to time because honestly, I was saying on my status yesterday that one of the reasons that I was excited about, coming on board was the topic really. Um, Forgive my manners. Shout out to VC Fortune for sharing your platform again with me. I think this is the second time we're doing this. We bless God that the first time was possibly super impactful or insightful, that you thought it wise to have me again. And so I am super excited to be on your platform and just to teach and to share, honestly. I feel like I come here with some sort of a burden. And why I am here in the first place is that the topic really resonated with me because it was super aligned with what I would call my current burden, right? For the young African, not just the young African, the young Nigerian in Nigeria and even in the diaspora, right? But particularly in Nigeria. And so when he said the name of the event was, the third world advantage, or I was speaking on the third world advantage, I was like, okay, I can get behind that. That is amazing. So thank you guys for having me. And so that we do not take too much time, I can see that I've already gone 9 minutes. So thank God for the stopwatch there. To see that we do not waste too much time and we go right into what brought us here, I am just going to start. All right. Okay. So as is a culture for me, right? I always like to say or speak words. So let me not just call it prayer, but I like to speak words whenever I have the opportunity to, share and to speak to young people or to speak to anyone, because I've always said that information or colliding with information, access to information or interfacing with some form of information doesn't automatically lead to transformation. All right. And with the internet culture, we have lots of webinars, workshops, live events, and we gather and we talk to each other. But that doesn't lead to transformation automatically. All right. The catalyst for transformation, is understanding. All right. So information or colliding with information positions you for transformation, but it doesn't mean transformation will be automatic, because transformation actually comes from understanding. And that's why this is a pretty consistent culture for me, where every time I step on board a platform to share, I always say and speak certain words of, speak positive words over everyone, and, over myself too. So I hope we can do that very quickly. So I ask that there is a release of understanding tonight. I ask that as much as everyone will listen to the sound of one voice, every single person under the sound of my voice receives very specific, tailor-made instruction. Men begin to receive their blueprints. And as I usually say, while I speak, I ask that the drum beats begin to sound, and kings and prophets and everyone under the sound of my voice who has been predestined to play a part or play a role in returning Africa back to its prosperity destiny, I ask that they are awakened and their hearts are open. I ask for understanding and I ask for utterance, that every word that comes out of my mouth goes out with simplicity and clarity. Amen. All right. Are we good? Are we ready? Are you guys ready for tonight? I can sip on this, right? While we talk. Okay. So I'm just going to keep going. All right. Okay. Thank you. All right. So the third world advantage. What exactly is the third world advantage? Now, just because I like to believe that not every single person who is here is on the same, intellectual wavelength or has the same or equal amounts of knowledge and information, I'm going to break that down. All right. Now, interesting trip, fun fact, right? The term third world country, when you hear that this country is a third world country, right? It didn't initially mean it's a poor country or it's a small country and all of that, right? As far as history goes, there was an era, right, where NATO, America, the Western Bloc, were competing very strongly with the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union is the empire that had everything from Russia to Czech Republic to Slovakia, Lithuania, and all these other countries, right? Now, at some point, there was heavy competition between, the West, America, and, everything that America represents, its personal, agendas and the Soviet Union. In fact, everything you saw from everybody competing to get to the moon was all part of that competition. So what differentiated these two sides were their ideologies, right? So the American bloc believed in democracy, while the Soviet Union, inspired by people like Karl Marx, believed in communism. This is your first personal homework from his stage. Go and read on the difference between communism, socialism, democracy. No basics. All right. I'm super glad that a conference like this is holding, so that we can start engaging the young African on a better plane, on a higher level, because there's work to do, and you can't be, shallow. You can't be mediocre, right? If you're going to play in these spaces, you must be. So go and do a lot of reading on all of that, on communism, socialism. That's your first homework. Say thank you, sir. Okay. So like I was saying, the third world country was just any country that was not an ally of any of the two. So America had its allies, for example, with NATO, and then the Soviet Union had its own allies as an empire with different nations. So any country that didn't belong to that American bloc or the Soviet bloc was referred to as a third world country. Now, it just so happened that a lot of the countries that were not allied with either NATO or the Western bloc, and Russia and the Czech and Soviet Union and all of that, it just turns out that a lot of those countries were, they were not, a lot of them were not very wealthy, right? They lacked a lot of political structure. They lacked a lot of economical structure. They lacked a lot of industries infrastructure, right? So it could either be that it's just a country that just recently gained independence, and that was mostly African countries, right? And we just gained independence, right? In 1960, Nigeria got independence, right? They taught you in primary school. And it meant that was when we really started trying to have a proper structure, a political infrastructure, right? On what is the law, what is the kinika, like all of that, setting up political infrastructure, setting up, now that you guys are an independent nation, how will your economy be, right? Oh, we want to be, sorry, I have it over here. We want to explore our natural resources. We want to, do whatever, right? Oh, so you guys, you have oil, you guys have gold. Maybe we can build mines. So industry, right? So third world countries, the word third world country really just meant that it was a country that most likely was just got free not too long ago. They are still building their political structure, infrastructure. They do not have the strongest economical structure. For example, countries like England or Netherlands or Switzerland, these are countries that have been in existence for longer. They've had longer, more sustainable political structures. They've had very sustainable industrial structures. So they have enjoyed wealth, global wealth. They've made money. They have better structure. Basically. And so a third world country initially meant that you're not allied with either the US or the Soviet Union, and it usually just meant, for most of them, just because of the circumstance around the birth of the nation, they didn't have a lot of economical structure. Political structure was not good. And funny enough, like, we're a country where up till now it looks like we cannot set up a proper, I don't know, God help us, I'm live. So I have to be careful what I say. But truth be told, it's quite heartbreaking that over the years, we are still what you consider a third world country. All right. So it's not a word for Africans. India is still a third world country, right? I like to believe Pakistan. There are non-African countries who are also considered third world countries, but a good number of African countries, just because of the context, the narrative, and everything around the birth of the country, right, the establishment of the country, are referred to as third world countries. So they do not have a lot of leverage in themselves to really ally with the big guys, and usually they are used for their resources. Most of them just even gain that independence from some of those guys. So they're pretty much disadvantaged countries. And to be honest, to be factual, it just so turns out that Nigeria currently is one of those countries. Economically, we do not have a good structure. Politically, like I'll teach you going forward, there are lots of things that, if we had these things functional, if they were right, we will not be where we are. Okay? So this is why this is a very important meeting. Given that you do not control the circumstances around your life, all right? There are certain things that life hands you that you have no control over. You do not choose the family you're born into. You do not choose the nation you are born into. All right? And life, the game of life is the game of life. It is literally a game. All right? The other countries, the first and second world other countries, are at a place where they have so much leverage, they have so much history, infrastructure, systems in place that they can compete for global power. All right? They can compete for global power, like the US, like China, right? Which is also a communist nation, like the Soviet Union in the past, right? These are countries that have been existing long enough. You know how many dynasties and empires, China has had? They've existed long enough to have a strong culture, to have strong systems in place that gives them an advantage. It gives them the right to compete on a global scale. On a global scale, not 1 naira or 5 naira. Like, how do we own, for example, the digital economy, right? How do we own this? How do we leverage digital media? They have built the kind of infrastructure over time because they're not struggling economically, because they've had economical systems, America, even as with everything from the Great Depression to the Wall Street skinny, that is literally the epicenter of a lot of stuff that happens in finance. So they have systems, they have structure. And it means that if there are two young people, you and another person, with the same visions, the same dreams, you know, the similar mandates, similar giftings, similar ages, you know, but you are born in two different ecosystems, one of them, especially given that you don't have control over where you're born. If you are born in any of these ecosystems, was that my light? Okay. If you're born in either of these ecosystems, you know, it affects how far you go. So someone who is probably not even half as talented as you are, right? It doesn't carry as many prophetic words on their head like you do. And for some reason, they're able to pick and see like, oh, this is what I want to be, this is what I want to do. Just because they, for example, are born in a more enabling environment, an environment with a stronger political system, a stronger industrial system, a stronger economical system, they will most likely outdo you. So now, given that you, like our host, the host for tonight was saying, is there still hope for Africa? Yes. Now, given that you, without any say in the matter, a lot was not cast between you and God. You were just born, and the moment you opened your eyes in Nigeria. And some of you, it's even a bad, let me not say a bad part of Nigeria, but like a very, very, rural part of Nigeria. Maybe you were born in Epoma. God forgive me, you guys, I like you. Or you are born in, I don't know, somewhere in Benue State. Yeah, not like there's anything wrong with those states, job, or you get what I'm saying. You're born in a very remote area. You do not have any say in the matter. You did not choose that. You did not choose that. But given that, with all of that, as an African, like we already established tonight, you are dynamic, you are powerful, and you are loaded with so much God-given giftings, potential, not just in yourself, but even on the land, the very land that you sit. There are certain things that are already an advantage for you. Follow me carefully. So, given that you are an African in Africa, born into a third world country, and you know that by the reason of the words, the prophecies, the insights and light you've been receiving about life and purpose and destiny, you know that you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that, you're supposed to do this, right? And for some of you are seeing that this thing is the mission or the mandate is pretty heavy. It's not something small. You're supposed to sit on certain global tables, especially if you're going to create change, especially if you're going to create impact. The level of impact you're going to create in the world, no matter how much great intentions you have, no matter how much zeal you carry, the amount of change you make in the world is usually tied to, the circles of influence that you have access to. So even in your quest, or even in our quest to take Africa or take Nigeria from where we currently are as a third world country, because we are not the first. There are lots of people who have been classified as third world countries who have evolved. So there is a possibility for evolving, for advancing, and for making quantum leaps. Now, given that you are born into this space and you have a global mandate, now, even if you're here and you feel like maybe I've not gained clarity on this and this and what exactly the marching orders, for me are, you should be in its smallest form. You should be burdened about advancing your race, your kind, your people. All right, I hope I'm making sense tonight. Even if you have not, like Noah, you have not received what the blueprint is, like, how many kilometers is this wood? How many days? You have not received, specifics. In your heart, at least, there should be a desire to advance not just yourself and your family and your kind, but your people. Like Joseph, set them free, advance them. All right, Joseph advanced, the Israelites. How? There was a global famine coming, and he had to be positioned in an influential space, even though he was coming in. Now, if you look at scripture, the Israelites are what you even consider a third world country. because they were former slaves, just like Africans, just like the Negro in America. They were former slaves, right? They didn't have an army, they didn't have a king, they didn't really have any strong economical system. They worked for Egyptians, they were paid wages from Egypt. So they really were a third world country. And this is so beautiful that the conversation is really drifting in here or towards this direction. One of the most, and this is one of the things I feel very strongly to do tonight, or to do for you guys tonight, is that when we look at Nigeria and say, oh, we give up, all this is bad, you are not the first. Thank God most of you have Bibles, and if you have a Bible here, you can open to Exodus and see the tribulations and trials of the Jews. They literally were slaves. If you missed the Bible and you feel like the Bible is not real, at least you saw what happened with Hitler and his quest to annihilate the Jews. We're even a place in Africa where nobody's even personally trying to kill us. Civilization, culture, politics, and policy has shifted in such a way where more people are more, democracy is more, people are more focused on the human being, right? And people are more, the incentives are more economical than they are just, oh, let me own this land, right? But you don't see anybody trying to literally make you a slave and pick cotton, right? Or nobody sending you to a camp, a concentration camp. I hope you know that for the Jews, regardless of what you were, you could have been like a Wizkid, you could have been like a Dangote, whatever it is that you were. When Hitler came on them, everybody was sent to a country. You became nothing. They freezed your account. You had nothing, literally nothing. So as we're so lucky that we are just a third world country, and we're not experiencing any the type of marginalization. Let me not say any, because there's still systemic racism, obviously, but we're not even experiencing the type of oppression that the Jews faced. And honestly, one of the things I taught in the cave, I remember we had the mastermind called the Jewish Phenomenon, and I had to narrow in and teach my people, right, that you have to learn from these guys. You have to learn from these guys. Even if you look at America today, there are lots of protests, there are lots of activists, very bold public activists about how Black Lives Matter and the oppression of the Black race, right? And I'm not saying that there are none for Jewish people, but one of the strongest groups. In fact, everything that Hitler did with concentration camps and stuff, right? From what I studied, he even learned from Americans and how they treated Black people, even after slavery was abolished, how they put them in ghetto camps. That's the same thing as a concentration camp, right? So these people are some of the people that are the Jews are a race or a tribe or a type of people who have faced a lot of marginalization. They also did not become a country like the nation Israel until 19 what? Somebody help me check. I think 1940 something or 1970 something or 1960 something. It's not that far back. Israel did not gain independence. So at some point you could have categorized them as a third world country. But whether we like it or not, everybody that's pretty discerning on this knows that right now the Jews have taken back their power. All right, they went from third world country to a group of people who are controlling the globe. From media and Hollywood, it's the Jews, right? To a lot of things. I wish we had time. I'm ready 30 minutes in, right? Because I would have really loved to do a breakdown on the Jews, on how people like you, who even probably suffered more than you have not had any reason where anybody's taking you to any concentration camp, where from there they can send you to a gas chamber and just kill you. All right? You might not have been given so much, which is not really even true. Because there's a lot of aid that goes to Africa. I'm going to get into that soon. You might not have been given so much, but at least you've been given your autonomy and your agency. Oh God, I hope I'm making sense to you guys. You begin your agency and you can learn after other people. There are other people who have gone from not just third world country, but from small, marginalized and oppressed to people who are controlling the helm of global affairs. I was gisting with my sibling, who is pretty amazing, the other day, that in my opinion, I think right now the Jews might be the most powerful country in the world. Low key. And it's even better, it's even great that they are quite a lot of people still underrate them. But they're solid. Military, you want to mess with them. Economically, the Jews, money, business, is it real estate? Is it media? Is it Hollywood? Right? They understand the game. So, given that you too are coming from a third world country, given that you too are coming from, some form of marginalization because there's still systemic racism, right? There are certain information that you cannot get if they notice that your IP address stays Nigerian. I hope you know, for some of you have taken some courses online, you know that you have to use VPN to get access to certain information. That's basic gatekeeping. They're just keeping it away from you. So yes, we're not experiencing the kind of slavery that the Jews experienced. Nobody's whipping your back and asking you how many grams of cotton you picked. But there's still some oppression, right? And so, number one, you are small, like the Jews. You are in a third world country where the political systems are not that. The Jews wherever we are now, you know, they have gone through a season where they didn't have the strongest political systems, they didn't have the strongest industrial or military systems, they didn't have the strongest economy, but they have gone past it now, right? So this whole thing where we just complain and complain and complain, our case is not the worst. And so if you are going to thrive and survive in a third world country, this is your second assignment, right? And I'm going to help you do a bit of it while I'm on this call. You need to study people who were born or found themselves initially in a state where you refer to them as third world and have built, you know, taking back their power. You know, they have built they have made economical progress, they have made political progress, they are, you know, playing games on a global scale, creating value, you know, on a global scale. They're not just benefactors or like people are having their hands out. They are creating the change, they are creating value, they have, you know, found a way to infiltrate the spaces or the systems of power and influence in the world today. And instead of shouting, you know, like I was saying about the difference between us and the Jews, is that instead of doing protests, it just let me use the word just protest, which are great, right? You can't just be in a place where like you're just complaining about, oh, they choked another black person or they did this. If they, you know how many people were killed during, you know, the Hitler thing. Do you know how many people were wiped out? Lots of people, right? But like, as much as we can protest and leverage media, for example, to bring into consciousness the evil that is going on and, you know, crying to the world like, oh, this is not right. Like, where's your survival instinct? Oh my goodness, 32 minutes gone. Now, and this leads me to the next thing. So if you want to understand how to thrive in a third world country, I must teach you something from first principle. I've gone 32 minutes, right? I cannot see the comment section. I need to know that you guys are understanding me, right? I'm trying my best. I'm idle, but I'm putting this thing so simply to you. Now, if you want to understand how you forget who you came with or forget who you are listening to this with, you as a person listening to me right now, born in a third world country like Nigeria, if you want to understand how to survive, you must understand the principle around basic survival. All right. I hope everybody can hear me. You must understand. Now, I'm a firm believer in what I call first principle thinking, right? And like someone like Charlie Munger will say, for you to understand this field, you must maybe have a background in physics or biology, right? School is not a scam. Oh, read your books. I beg you. All right, you're a young black person. You need to change the narrative where they say, if you want to hide something from a black man, put it in a book. Read, research, learn, build your mind. This is an asset. All right. Now, if you're going to understand everything that we're talking about from third world countries, I need to break it down to you from first principle, right? I don't have so much time tonight. This is just 30 minutes. Oh my goodness. But like I said on my status that tonight I'm going to release, you know, some of the stuff I'm going to be teaching at my end of the year bootcamp this year. So I'm going to really try. Usually there I have enough time because it is my platform. I can speak for 3 hours during our strategy bootcamp. You know, I can speak for 4 if they allow me. But you guys have just 1 hour. So listen to me very, very carefully. Again, understanding. Your eyes see, your ears hear, your heart understands. Okay? Now, if you're going to understand survivor, let's forget all the terms third world country and this. Let's understand basic survival, right? If you want to understand survival, you might need to understand some basic biology. All right, so let me teach you first principles. For those of you who know anything about biology, you read some Charles Darwin or whatever, I'm sure you know the law of natural selection, right? It's literally the law of adaptation or adaptability, if we want to put it that way. Now, I hope you know that not all, I'm sweating a lot, right? Yeah. Okay. I hope you know that not all, how do I put this now? Okay. I hope you know that not all zebras, no, let's use the giraffe. The original giraffes, the forefathers of giraffes, they didn't necessarily have long necks, right? Now, they were born normally. They had a regular neck, yeah? And for some reason, based on their DNA, they are herbivores, they eat plants, right? This is how they are made. This is how they thrive. Their ecosystem is that they eat plants, they eat herbs, but for some reason they liked their forefathers like to eat the herbs from trees, not from the ground, right? And so to eat that, they will stretch their neck, right? They'll stretch their neck. And over time, because they were located in a particular environment where the best way to get access to, their favorite herbs or the best herbs, right, is, yes, the best way to get it is to stretch their neck and eat from the top of the tree. Adaptation, right? And based on the law of natural selection, over time, as they kept stretching their neck and they started reproducing, more giraffes started having longer necks. All right. Now, even us human beings, Homo sapiens, right? Have you seen a Neanderthal? I hope I'm not speaking above heads today. God help me tonight. Like the early man, when they say a caveman, a Neanderthal, rough face, hair, Now, they had more sharper teeth because they were in the wild, right? They were hunters and gatherers. They had to pick berries and hunt for mammals or hunt for animals to eat. And because of the way they had to survive, the terrain in which they had to survive, they had to live from caves, they had to move out around a lot, Because of that, for example, they didn't have all the infrastructure we have in the world today to make food so tender. And they probably were not even civilized enough to know that, let the food be tender so that, or whatever. So they had to eat a lot of meat and even bones, food that was not particularly tender, But as we started cooking our food, as we started cooking our meals, as we started, evolving with our behavior based on our environment, our food became more tender, and you didn't need to have very big sharp teeth anymore. And now you see I have an amazing dentition, by the way. We bless God. Now you can see now that you have to start developing features, right? Same way. You must understand that you, the African, who finds himself like a Neanderthal, like a caveman in Africa, based on the fact that you're in a third world country, based on the fact that in your own country, you cannot just, unlike abroad, where you can just eat herbs from the ground, you might need to stretch because of the economical systems, because of the political systems, the corruption and everything, just the way things are, you might need to stretch your neck. Right? And so, what then do you do if you are born as a Nigerian in Nigeria or a young black person in a third world country? Right? Give me a minute. Now, first things first, oh my goodness, time. First things first, like I said, you must learn to adapt. All right? You must learn to adapt. Now, especially economically speaking, because now, in those days, for the Neanderthal, the way you survive is what? You learn to hunt. All right? Or like giraffe, you have to stretch your neck to get leaves because you didn't choose it. The giraffe didn't choose the tropical region where it finds itself. Right? That's not a factor it has control over, but it must learn to adapt. So you are born into a country where the economical, industrial, military, political systems are not very solid. This is why we have in my opinion, a lot of failed startups, because you are bringing ideas and you're bringing innovations that are meant for another ecosystem to our own ecosystem, and you expect it to work. Right? It's a problem. So you can't do business like them abroad, right? For example, people abroad, they live, as long as they are, especially in America, they live in a capitalist, society. Capitalism, right? It means that consumerism is very high. The consumerism you see in media and in America today is extremely intentional. Sorry about that. It's extremely intentional. It's not luck. The reason why you see people, when there's a new iPhone, people sleep on the line to get the next iPhone abroad, and they are not rich people's children, regular people, right? The very reason why they can buy stuff, there's the consumerism, is all to push capitalism. I don't even have time today. God help me. I don't even have time today to go deep into capitalism. Maybe I'll do that during SBC. But like everything around capitalism, from industry to business to mortgage systems to the way you can use a credit card to pay for stuff, to marketing and advertising, which bloomed in the early 50s, right? All of that was strategic to push the type of society that they wanted, which was a capitalist one, right? And to push a capitalist system where you even allow people to buy stuff on credit, it means that your economical structure is very solid. So people can pay for subscription stuff online. You can run certain types of business models online and not sweat. I think it was selling school, I was teaching people that when you're selling abroad, because there's no friction for people to get access to cash or capital to pay you for stuff, you don't even have to have the best offer. You can just put something and just do a nice video and people might buy because they can just leverage their credit card and pay for it, right? It's here that we buy everything with cash. You pay for almost everything here with cash. Your phone, you're paying with cash. There's no mortgage. All right. If you don't have money, you can't buy land. All right. You can't even think of buying a house. Right? They have a mortgage system. You can, I'm going to make an installment on this and then I'll pay over time and eventually the house becomes mine. But they have certain systems but you do not have that. So imagine now, let's talk about this now, just to give you some insight. If there are two people who have a mandate, to create a lot of change, leveraging real estate, housing, real estate, urban design, leveraging that to improve Africa, improve whatever, right? If there are two people, if there's one abroad and there's one in Nigeria, the one abroad will most likely have way more ease than the one who is not. Because first of all, even the people you are selling to, maybe they can just leverage a regular person. You don't have to be a wealthy person. A regular person most likely can, put some money down on a mortgage and get access to a house. And you're making progress and all of that. In Nigeria, you don't have that. Our urban development is even very poor. I remember one time consistently looking at where I was living. I'm like, but we watch films now, even in the slums, there's a way it is, the urban spaces are designed. The way the housing is designed. Here, some of you, let's not like that. People on this call now, that you don't even have an address. You know it. You have to use one if you are buying anything online. You have to use another address. You don't even have an address. Where you live, and imagine now you have to leverage. You have a strong body to do something in the real estate sector in Nigeria, where there is no basic urban design. And then there's another person who is not even as talented as you abroad, who needs to do that same thing, who will make more progress and who will make progress quickly. So you have to be able to adapt. You must understand that, I don't know, for some reason, maybe it's because we are very status driven as Nigerians, not even Africans, particularly as Nigerians, right? Maybe that's why, they love us so much. And I'll even tell you why they like us so much. You must learn to adapt. So that's number one. You must learn to adapt. Adaptability, right? Because a lot of stuff is not handed to you. Like I was just speaking about the capitalism and consumerism. If you are in Nigeria, you also need to make money. If you are going to do business, for example, you cannot be just passionate like somebody abroad who they don't have to have the best offer. They can just talk about what they do in an excited way, and people are not even trying to, like, survival is low. Nobody's really trying to like survive. Everybody's really surviving. So people can just say, what do you do? Let me try, let me test this, In Nigeria, you're selling to a market where most people are just thinking about survival. The infrastructure for you to even do the thing you're supposed to do is messy, and you still have to do it. You must learn to adapt. You can't be Nigeria number one. One of the most important adaptation skills I've been saying that the African in Nigeria, sorry, the African in Africa, Nigeria must build is selling. The same thing that you sell to a foreign market and just put one or two things. They're saying to in Nigerian market, testimonials must be there. Your offer must be really good. You know, you must really layer in your offer. You must really, your sales page has to be good. You must learn how to close. It is another, see, for everybody on the sound of my voice, if I leave you with this one, I have about 15 more minutes, right? If I leave you with this one, as far as adaptability goes, this is the one I'll say everybody should build. Go and learn how to sell. Because the skills you're learning graphic design, you're learning motion graphics, the people that are competing with, they are learning those skills and they are in a more economically or industrially mature ecosystem, right? Where they don't even need to be the best salesmen. If they have some good enough technicality, right? The system is meant to reward you. But you have to be twice as good to probably even get half of what they get. Your skills will not sell themselves. You can be talented and broke. So one of the adaptation skills that anybody born in a third world country must learn, let's write this one down, is you should learn how to sell. Like the cavemen that came before you, their civilization for eating, for surviving, there was no market, so they had to go and hunt. The modern day version of hunting is learning how to make money, you guys. And for you, given that you are not in a capitalist, society where everything is designed to make sure it is easy for anyone to get into free trade, create value and make money, you have to learn to sell. That's one of the adaptation things you must build. Another thing, the next thing, how many minutes do I have? For 6 minutes? Oh my goodness. The next thing that you need to have is you must, and these are not a major thing I want to teach you guys tonight, is there is no real disadvantage in that sense. So I learned this when I was just starting out in business online, right? When I started, the cave, we're not the only community online. All right. There are other people who have been probably doing it longer than we have or longer than I have. But I had to look and say, we might just be starting and we might look smaller right now. But like, based on what every other person else is doing, what gives me a competitive advantage? And I found out that because I didn't have a huge team or a huge audience like other people, I could be more intimate. I always shared the story that when I just started the cave, everybody that paid to join my mentorship, I would jump on a one-on-one onboarding call with you first. That could go from maybe 30 minutes or 20 minutes to an hour plus. Just asking about family, knowing like what are the limits. Like I had to learn that, oh, this is my advantage. The people that are bigger than me cannot be this intimate. Right? Exactly. So you must also look at yourself and say, given that I'm in a third world country, what do I have that is of value and gives me an edge in the global market? Now, this is something that other countries, if you look at, these are, how many assignments have I given you guys tonight? I said to go and learn about capitalism, socialism. Like you must be in tune with the world now, my loves. You must be in tune with the world, right? But after that, go and study countries like Singapore and China. Countries like Singapore that literally went from third world to a global, people that are doing stuff, right? And learn playbooks. Do you get? But this one I'm going to pass to you. There's no real disadvantage. If you are small, if somebody's in a ship and I'm in a small boat, the advantage of that ship is, oh, there's protection. It has a bigger square meter or whatever, right? But the boat means that, oh, I can navigate. That's why you can see that somebody can be in a car and then you're on a bike. If we are both stuck in the traffic, who is advantaged? The bike. I can, get into small, tiny spaces, pocket of spaces, and still advance. That is how it is for you in Nigeria now. Usually, like I said, go and study the playbooks of countries that, built from third world or seeming like a third world to a global, solid, nation, and look at their playbooks. One of what you most likely see is that they learned how to utilize their own competitive advantages. So what are your own? You, the Nigeria, that gives you an edge, or it is of great, immense value in the global market. All right? Because even if you're thinking about a third world country, economically speaking, you're not very solid. So it is even wiser to be able to earn in foreign currency. It's wiser to transfer yourself to a more stable economical system. So you can be local yet global. All right. So the next thing is what? You must learn. You must learn. You must learn to look at your natural advantages. Now, what do I mean by this? For example, given that you're a third world country, you don't have certain leverage, you can't compete in certain spaces. One things, if you look at Nigeria, for example, I can call a couple of things that we have, right? Number one, we have a large market size, right? About 200 million people. That is a large market. That is a very large market. Okay, and this is one of the reasons why we have seen a lot of foreign companies come to Africa, is to leverage, like, as much as we talk a lot about, arbitrage, earning in, foreign currency while living in locally. Do you know what it means to have, if you have 300,000 Nigerians, and they pay you 30K? You have an offer, or you have a piece of value solution, a package solution that is about 20,000 naira. There's a huge market size here. All right, there's a huge market size. That's one of the advantages. Yeah, there was a season where China are competing for the global economy, but there was a season where they had to be labor for more advanced nations. So you see that companies like Apple and the rest, normally during the Industrial Revolution, they would have factories and employ their own people, but for cheaper costs. Listen very carefully. And this is how freelancing really started. Follow me. Nations that were pushing capitalism, for example, who were trying to get an edge, economically speaking, in the globe. Example, America. One of the things that they did is that they created industry, right? So you had steel, you had the steam engine that provided trains for distribution, that provided machinery to produce in large scale, like, for example, a can of beans or a can of sardine. In large scale, you needed people in the factory, you needed an accountant and all of that. But soon, more companies, they were creating an ecosystem where everybody could do that. And eventually, you needed to compete with other companies. Now, what some companies started doing is they started going to third world countries and outsourcing production or packaging and, compilation there. Now, for example, in America, if the minimum wage I'm supposed to pay an American to be in my assembly line or in my factory is, for example, $5,000 a month minimum wage, but I can get somebody in Nigeria or Pakistan to do that same thing for me, or I can get a warehouse in China where small I'm not going to say that, a warehouse in China where people are just going to be helping me do that, outsourcing production there, right? And the cost of getting those guys to do it and send it to me, let's say, is about $3,000, but I have to pay each person in America maybe $1,000 to do that. What will I do? So you can see that these countries are trying to play in the global scale, on the global stage, but they required and they needed help. And third world countries were smart enough to say, "Oh, bring your production to us." There was a time where everything made in China, right? And they did that in that season. They didn't start forming that they will be doing startups. And I'm not saying you should not do a startup, but based on where they were as a country, they knew that, if based on how many people we have and our culture, our work ethic, we can really outsource labor to the global market and get paid, in global currency. Nigeria has that. All right. It could be production, it could be manufacturing, it could literally be your natural resources. In fact, for most third world countries, that's all they bank on. It's just that because of how poor the political systems are, even when people pay them for these natural resources, the money doesn't really go. Nigeria had a thing where globally there was a demand for oil and we're sitting on oil. But look at where we are. It was due to the fact that we are actually a third world country. We don't have a solid enough political system that will ensure that even when we're doing global trade, the wealth was being dispersed in the country equally. So, what are our competitive advantages? I feel like what I'm saying now might seem very contrarian to what people might say about, just go and do a startup. But you must understand the terrain you're in. You must understand the nuance and the context around your life being in Nigeria, building the thing that you feel desperate, very strongly in your heart that you have been called to do. I have 5 more minutes now. Thank you, Lord. Right? And so you could see that the other countries have done this. The Jews, for example, is the same thing. Because they were marginalized, right? A lot of them got into industries like real estate at the time, which was not very noble. You didn't have it was more better for people to know that, oh, you're in school as a doctor. Real estate, just the way it is now today with agents, you don't really have to go to school for it, Abi. And that's how I decided getting into space like that, because we were marginalized a bit, right? Same thing with media. Hollywood film didn't look, there was no, it didn't have the type of status that it has today. But it got into Hollywood. You see where you are. Like, that's why we can't just be copying people and say, oh, this person is doing a startup in America, I'm going to do my own. Like, we need to create solutions that meet local problems, global level solutions that meet local problems. All right. And then, like I said, look, what is your competitive advantage? What gives you an edge in the global market? Even given the fact that you are from, a third world country. What gives you an edge, and how can you press in on that? I've given you the first thing to do, adaptability. And one of the skills, or one of the attitudes or characters that you build to adapt is, please go and learn how to sell. Hunger doesn't beat you, because you cannot even innovate when you have not yet survived. And that's where we are. We're in a place where we need to survive first, right? Before we just step into innovation. Like, innovation is the plan, right? But there are certain structures, certain infrastructure, politically, economically, industrially, that need to be set in place first. I have such limited time. I have just 3 minutes, and I'm just going to round up by giving you more things, right? So even the Jews did it. Like, oh, we might not have all the advantage in the world, but we can break into finance. Finance, I've taught before that banking and finance, it really started from what, if you really look at it, it takes a lot of its roots from what we call money lending. And that's something that a lot of Jews did. All right. And hey, it was not a noble profession. You didn't need to particularly go to a school to be a banker. Like, it was money lending, and they got into it. And that's most likely what has, evolved into finance as we know it today. There is a season. So what are your thoughts? What advantages as in Nigeria? Nigeria there's a huge market. The market size is crazy. Let nobody lie to you. All right? The market size is crazy. There's a lot going on in the world today. Now, we are not where these other countries are. But given that they have already started unlocking certain things, I have 2 more minutes. I'm about to round up. Given that they have already started unlocking certain things in certain industries and stuff, how can you be the screw and spanner of the industry? I've thought about this before, I think, right? I've talked about screws and spanners. Who was saying it? That whenever people say that there's a gold rush, I will sell shovels. So I don't rush on trends. I create these tools and the resources and the spanners that people need to explore whatever fantasy or dream that they said is available. So if people say, there's a gold rush, instead of rushing to go and dig gold, a wise businessman will sell shovels, right? So we might not be a first world country that has all the infrastructure in the world, but for these guys in the first world countries, these guys in the developed countries, they have agendas. They have stuff they want to do. Given that I'm the third world country, given that this is the plan these people have, right? How can I provide value to them? All right. Nigeria is a wide country. There's a large market in this nation. Yeah. That most people trivialize in just because, oh, I want to make dollars. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you are in a very, very flourishing, like, as far as market size is concerned, Nigeria, come on, man. Right? The foreign market, the AI market, the Web3 market, there are lots of advancements that we are not yet particularly ready for, but there are people who are ready for it, right? You can start, you can present your skills, you can present your value to these people to help them make progress, so that you too are enriched and you can come to a place where you go beyond survival to innovation. I really wish I had more time, but yes, I will stop here. Now, I'll add one more thing. Can I add one more thing? I have a couple of seconds, so I'll add one more thing, right? one last thing I would say is the advantage of being a third world country is you have access, to global capital allocation. Oh, let's give the Africans money. Let's give them this. You have access to capital allocation if you know how to position. So that's an advantage. There's certain budgets that are set aside for Africa. I believe you're in the impact space, you're in development space, and you're doing work that's going to impact people. There is funding for it. That in itself is an advantage. All right. Okay. So my time is up and I will stop now. I hope you learned something. I hope this was, this helped somebody gain some form of alignment. Thank you guys for having me. Thank you.
Wow, that was amazing. That was amazing. Thank you so much, sir, for pouring out. You would agree with me that today is so loaded. You've been thoroughly bamboozled. Really. If you were able to jot down something, can I see your comment in the comment section? Wow, amazing. I think for me, one of the things that really stood out for me is how that being an African is an advantage, and how that adaptability is a necessity. It's not an option, it's a necessity. And being able to adapt in any form, being a third world country is not just a disadvantage, it's not a disadvantage, and we can harness it. Right. So we are going into the Q&A session. So if you have a question, you can kindly drop them in the comment section and our speaker will come up to answer. I saw a question and he is asking, how can I sell? You said learn how to sell. This person is asking, how can he sell? So I think I would leave that question to Sir Mezier the Sage to answer while other questions keep coming up. Thank you, sir. Over to you.
Okay, so yes, this is honestly why I feel like we run the way we do, in the cave, because I usually say that I think I posted something on my start journey, but I feel like we are coming to a point where we need more incubators than we do webinars, because you can hear a lot in a webinar and then not really, there's no how. It's just like, oh, go and do this, but like how? So I like that question. How do I learn to sell? Like every other thing, learning, there are frameworks, right? There are methodology. It's not instant, right? Currently, I have something I call Selling School, right? You get access to Selling School tapes plus an execution group, where we help you figure out what to sell. We help you to make sure that your offer is good. You start putting out your offer, you start making money. Selling is a skill, all right? And this is why a lot of people are taught that. This is why most people fail or struggle in business, because you see people spend 5-6 years maybe studying a course on campus, and then after that, they just do business as an afterthought. Like, oh, I need money. Let me just go and start selling business. Right? So you learn to sell by going to go and learn. Like, go and get a course if you can. I have one. I personally I didn't get any permission to sell anything, so I'm not going to do that. But like, you can get a course. I literally have something called Selling School, because I know that this is something that most people need to get out of it, especially if you're going to do impact work. Like me, if you're going to do work that's people-centric, you must have a system for coin, for sustenance, for resource. Even Jesus Christ had Judas, and he had an accountant, right? So even when they had meals and they broke bread and everything, there was something allocated for, oh, this is what you use to buy our bread. Like, you think Jesus just did like this and bread came out from heaven? And that is Jesus Christ. He had the structure for finance, and that is ministry. So selling, like I said, is something you need to learn, because whether you have a skill or you are doing impact work, you are building an audience online, you must have a system so that you're not frustrated. Don't be watching somebody abroad that, I don't know, abroad, something they call food stamps abroad. That's how much they cater to them, even the poor, even in the ghetto. You can, in the ghetto, get something called a food stamp and go and collect something and eat. No, you can now somebody like that is in an ecosystem like that is now telling that, oh, I'm doing work that I just gave to the poor. I just helped you in Nigeria. You just rush and do it. Even an NGO, even non-profits, where it is like, oh, we're raising money for this. Like the idea of the system is that it is non-profit. You're not selling anything to customers. I've studied business models. There's a business model for a non-profit. Yes, like, oh, we're going to give 30 uniforms and bags and books to some students or some children in Makoko. The system is designed to receive funding from another space. So for them, funding doesn't come from selling to people, to customers. It comes from raising money. That's a system for finance, even for philanthropic work. Because for some of you, I want to be a philanthropist. God said I'll be a philanthropist. You better go and learn how to sell. And learn how to sell means go and find somebody who can sell. So the whole idea of education is mentorship. You find somebody who has learned or can do the thing that you're trying to do, and then you submit to their regiment. I've talked with that I mentor somebody that is like, oh, I'm your guy, I'm always praying for you. What makes mentorship really mentorship is that there's a regimen. That's why school is a form of mentorship. There's a framework. This is how to set up offers. So, for example, in school, we teach you about offers, right? We teach you about lead generation. How do you get leads? How do you get people who are happy and excited to part with their money for your solution, right? How do you spot hot markets? It is all frameworks. Go and learn it. Regardless of what you do, whether, like I said, whether you have a skill that you learned or you are building an audience online, you will need a system for finance. And in 9 to 5 right now, I don't think that is, there's nothing wrong with it, right? But money is not a complicated thing, all right? It's something that you can learn and you can master. Hopefully, you find somebody, but you can get any school tips. I don't know. But yeah, that's about that. Go and learn how to sell. So like every school, like every course you learned before, you submitted yourself over a certain amount of time. For medicine, they tell you for 5 years you have to be under a regiment before we allow you to go and start opening bodies, right? So submit to a certain regiment, submit to a certain framework from somebody. That's what makes mentorship mentorship. Mentorship is not just emotional support. It is regiment. You're trying to become something, and then I show you everything. Oh, I'm a master swordsman. You want to become a master swordsman? I teach you how you get the metal, how the temperature that you need it to be at. Everything that is mentorship. It's not just, oh my guy, sorry, no. So for selling, to go and learn how to sell. And how do you learn? Get a framework, study it. You have to look. People who get things are so lucky because we don't just give you dates. We have an action execution space. That is proper education.
Wow, amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing. Please drop your questions in the comment section if you have any. I have a question. I do hear some people say that, oh, there are certain spaces. Yes, as our speaker has said, Samidzi, you've spoken about how that Nigeria has a flourishing market, and one of the advantage of third world countries is their size, right? The size is a massive advantage. Now, do you think that because several people would want to make impact, want to find a niche, but then they feel like, oh, this niche is saturated, right? Some people have that mindset. I don't want to start this because I feel like, for example, there are tons of content creators. I want to sell something, I want to sell my idea. There are tons of this. Someone is already doing that. What do you think should be the better and balanced perspective when it comes to saturation of niche, of the either the oversaturation, or is there even a thing as a niche being saturated? Yes, over to you, sir.
Okay. So first thing I would like to correct is I didn't say every third world country has a large side. I said Nigeria to be specific. So if you're in a third world country, you only need to look at your current, um, configuration and say, what do we have? For Nigeria, one of the things that we have is a sizable market. I didn't even say lucrative. I just said sizable. It's a big market, right? Aha. Now, given that you are in Nigeria with a big market, it is. I don't see how it's not an advantage in any way. Even if you are selling to the mass market, right? You have a lot of people. Now, it means that if, for example, I want to get into, let me think of a saturated niche or something that I can say is pretty saturated. Chocolate, hot chocolate, right? Cocoa. I want to start selling my own Bonvita or Milo. There are already some people in the space, right? But the market is so big that if, for example, you have an 8% or just a 3% market share, that is good money. That's not bad money at all, right? Now, if the market is so big, imagine we have 200 million people. right? If somebody is, for example, in a country where there are about, do you know, there are countries where there are maybe like, for example, like 500,000, the entire nation. Now, for that kind of person, if, for example, I figure out like, oh, this is the niche I want to get into, it means that if there are like 500,000 people and the thing I want to do, like there's a micro niche for it, right? It means that just like statistics or probability, chances are, let's say if I pick something very micro niche, I might have 70 people. But if you have 200 million Nigerians, even if you want to be niched, you'll be surprised that your micro niche, if you take inventory of the size, there are about maybe like 1.5 million people, right? And for every reasonable product or every reasonable market, we're talking about recurring buying. Everybody on Discord, if you want to go and check how much you spend on just MTN, like you get to the MTN company. So I'm just trying to show you how much everybody's people make in this country, right? Think about how much you give MTN. Some of you have been giving MTN money before you even had a job, before you even had a source of income, right from secondary school. You're already spending lots of money. Yeah, go and check. And this is just you. Maybe you're even 20 years old. If you have another 50 years to live on this earth, you're still going to most likely buy data this night or tomorrow. That's money from just you. Think about Coca-Cola. How much have you alone given Coca-Cola, right? In the how many years of this life? Like even if you didn't, even if you are for me, like, oh, I'm not a soda person. I'm more of a I'm an athlete. I like skateboarding. There's Monster. Oh, I'm very healthy. I only drink water. There's water, but they have bottled water, right? And think about how much you alone gives that company. Now, imagine how much Coca-Cola is making from, let's say, a 30% market valuation in Nigeria. And this is not even them getting new customers. So just from people already on board. Even MTN do not get a new customer. Do you know that they still have money? They're still good. Have you checked your bank? Have you seen how much your bank collects from you every day? Now think about a bank that has about 100,000 vendors daily doing exchanging money front and back daily. How much are they making? So I was just talking about Nigeria, us Nigerians. I don't know about Kenya because I'm not Kenyan, but for Nigerians, one of our advantages, one of our main advantages is our size, our market size. And it means that whether you're niching down, you're saying to general market, there's money. There's money to make. All right. And you need that money so that you can make progress. Was that clear?
Yes, amazing, amazing. Thank you
Okay.
so much, sir. And we'll take the last question for night. Someone is asking, except for adapting and knowing strengths, what are the other means of surviving in a third world country, especially Nigeria? Aside from adaptability and knowing your strengths, what other means can you give for adapting in Nigeria and third world
Are you
countries?
asking what
Yes.
other way to, so I'm just going to, like I said, I called a couple more, but I'm just going to give you two more, right? So like I said, look at yourself, yourself in this nation. I'm like, oh, what do we have? One of the things that we have, we might not have the richest people, right? So we've seen certain companies pull out of Africa, but one thing that we have, because we have 200 million people still, besides the large market size, is human capital. That's a lot of human capital, right? We have a lot of human capital. I also spoke about the fact that just because you're in a third world country and most people, whether it is based on PR and propaganda or they genuinely pity the African, there is money that is allocated to Africa, right? There is money allocated to Africa. And if you're either doing stuff in development space, for example, you're doing impact work, there is funding that you can access. A lot of funding, all the philanthropies and all the NGOs that the money that they collect goes to somewhere. And there are a lot of these NGOs set up around third world countries and their needs. So it means that if you're somebody who is excited about getting your hands in the game and helping and creating impact, there's funding allocated to that. Like, all right. Even if it means that, oh, I just want to create value, I want to do something, I want to start a business, I want to do a startup, innovation, even with that, right? But again, the whole point of what we are doing here is to show you we're not here to talk about branding, so to speak, or business. But we're talking about you. As far as life is concerned, you as an African in Africa or as a Nigerian in Nigeria. Like, I don't know how many other how many other strategies they are looking for. Adaptability could mean like, oh, I need to pick up certain skills that make me relevant in the global market. One of them, again, like I said, is sell. Don't play with it. Do not sleep on it. Right? Even if I cannot leverage or send my skills to the global market. I'm in Nigeria. There are a lot of people here. I can make money in Nigeria too. Right? Oh, even given the fact that, oh, I'm just a good person that has a very, very, very large heart and I want to help people a lot. There is an advantage of being somebody like that in Africa that is not there in abroad. So, like, that in itself, the human capital, it means that people, companies, corporations, global organizations that are abroad, that normally, I literally talked about freelancing and how it exists, because instead of paying their own people a high, what's it called now? Minimum wage, basic wage, to do the same work that you in a foreign country would do for less, and you still make money because they are paid in dollars. So, for example, instead of having a secretary that, based on the law and policy, economical policies of the land, I have to pay this person $3,000 monthly. I can have a virtual assistant in Nigeria that I'm paying $500 monthly. So that in itself shows you that, as a human being in Africa, I am human capital. I can provide human capital to organizations abroad. This is why we tell you pick up digital skills. This is why there's the whole thing about digital skills. There's the whole thing about freelancing. This is all just human capital. People in global markets, people in first world countries are building businesses, are building projects, and they need human capital. The advantage you have is that, you can be cheaper for them, meaning they don't have to spend so much money, and you still give them as much value as they will get, while also enriching yourself. Is that complicated? I don't think it is. Right? So, like I said, global capital allocation, right? Human capital, market size. There are lots of things, right? I said to go and learn how to sell, because whether it's you're doing a good project or you have a skill, it will not sell itself. Or you're starting a brand, it will not sell itself, right? You do not have all the amenities that somebody with your education level or your status has abroad. So you need to have you need to find one of the most important ways of surviving is financially. Like I said, what separates you from the old caveman is that there were no markets, civilization wise, culturally speaking, there were no markets where you could exchange, right? So they had to hunt. What is the most basic form of survival if it's not to survive and live? And in this day and age, in this civilization, it is money. So that's why I stressed on selling above other points. I'm not here to make you hear a high point and do deep. It's for you to survive and save yourself, right? So you don't need 7 points. 4 points are enough, right? That is mighty fine. Go and take action on that one. Amen.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. As you've heard, go and start to take action. This is a call to action for all the points that have been raised, all the salient point that has been raised. Go and take action and then learn how to sell, being able to adapt. Learning never ends. You never get tired and never get old and you never graduate from learning, really, in real sense. So please do well to put all these things into practice. A lot has been said, a lot, and I want to believe that your mind has been stretched. For me, my mind has been stretched to think beyond impossibilities, to think outside the box, to even think as though there's no box existing, right? To really think as an African, think beyond the challenges, beyond the limitations, the adaptability, and please, beyond just projecting yourself as, I cannot amount to anything, I cannot do this, I cannot do that. As he has said, you also need to learn from others. You can learn from other persons, people that can stand as mentors, people that can stand as maps and mirrors. You can really learn. So you have no excuse whatsoever. You don't have any. If you have an excuse before now. If you had an excuse an hour, 20 minutes ago, you don't have an excuse again. You can't feign ignorance on this one. Wow. Amazing. Thank you so much once again, Sam Medier, the Sage of the North. Thank you so much for being such a massive blessing to us. We are so glad to have you here. Thank you and thank you. Okay, that's an amazing round of applause. You can do better in the comment session. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. Yes, so with this, this is day 1 and it's already hot. You can attest to that. It is already hot. We have 3 more days, tomorrow, next tomorrow, and the 7th, which is gonna be the grand finale. So please, we meet again tomorrow by 8 p.m. West African time. Please be on time, be punctual as we take this journey to the next level. We've started with this momentum. Please keep up the momentum. So tomorrow we meet by 8 p.m. We'll be live on YouTube. We still have lots of amazing speakers that will be speaking to us concerning the third world advantage, rethinking Africa. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for staying with us up to this point, and see you tomorrow, same time, 8 p.m. Thank you, and have a pleasant night rest. And I remain Brown Elizabeth.
Across Africa, we know the problems. We've lived them, felt them, carried them. But the real question is, how do we fix them? This December, we are choosing to rethink what's possible with Giant Strides Summit 2025. Theme, the Third World Advantage. From the 4th to the 7th of December, seasoned thought leaders will chart the path forward for those determined to build their future from here. For every young African seeking clarity, direction, and strategy, this is for you.